Welcome. Today's education topic is mental health and essential oils. I'll be sharing a mental health starter kit that you can use for your health, for your family's health. My name is Christy Garcia, and I have been a doTERRA wellness advocate for about 12 years now. But I was really just a customer for the first 11 years using oils, part of my daily life. I have a lot of wonderful experiences with them. And really, just in this last year, have I started doing the business aspect of it. But from the very beginning, my family always used oils for the emotional and the mental benefits of it. Really quickly, we saw the impact it had on depression, on mood, on sleep, on all of those things in our family. And it's been an incredible blessing just alongside, as well as alongside the physical benefits that we get from the essential oils. So I really love the science behind the oils, especially as we talk about brain chemistry and physiology and all of the processes that go on in the body that the oils can influence in our life. I am a foot zone therapist, a functional nutritionist, and I'm an essential emotions coach through doTERRA. I was part of the first group of wellness advocates that got trained as essential emotions coaches through doTERRA with the protocols that we've designed for emotional coaching and release, which has been really amazing. So I'm going to start sharing a little bit of science first, some background, some foundation to get us started. So we joke that it's all in your mind because everything is in our mind. I love this picture. It's really helpful to help understand kind of where different functions happen in your brain. And we're really going to be focusing here, right there, kind of middle, memory processing, emotion. And you can see how smell right there sneaks over, has a little overlap. And we don't see that in a whole lot of other areas. And that's part of why, well, that's really the reason, the root of why smell can evoke memories so strongly, smell can evoke emotions so strongly, why there's such a huge correlation right there. And when we talk about memory processing and emotion, this is our limbic system. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into the limbic system and explain what that looks like for us. So this is our limbic system, and it's basically our emotional control system in the brain. Has a lot of different, you can see right here, just in context, our cerebellum, kind of the back of your brain, balance, regulate some base functions, breathing, things like that. And then our prefrontal cortex, that's like our higher reasoning skill, decision making. The limbic system is really your emotional brain. So we have lots of different parts of it. You can see here on the screen, I talk more in depth about the cingulate gyrus, the thymus, the hypothalamus, basal ganglia, hippocampus. Hippocampus is like the memory center of the brain. Like I was talking about how smells evoke memories, but it also helps with learning, emotions, things like that. My favorite part of this system, and one that I'm really going to talk about, especially when I love to, well, I don't know if anybody loves to talk about trauma, but I'm passionate about talking about trauma and how we can actually heal that in the brain. And so I like to talk about the amygdala. The amygdala is the fire alarm of your brain, and its main function is that emotional response. Oh, hey, I got to tell this body that they're in trouble. They need to protect themselves. They need to go into fight or flight mode. And it stimulates the chain reaction in the body to protect yourself. And that's really a protection response in your brain and your body, and it's supposed to be. But when that becomes maladaptive, that's how we always respond to stress, and we can't get ourselves out of it. Really great book called Completing the Stress Cycle. We can't complete that stress. Okay, now I'm stressed and now I'm over it. I ran away from the bear. I'm safe now. A lot of times in our society, we don't do the things that help our brain reset. And oils actually are one of them. I'll jump into that in just a second. So a lot of cognitive disorders are related to the limbic system. Depression, schizophrenia, olfactory issues, obsessive compulsive disorder, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar, autism, even things like Alzheimer's and movement disorders like Huntington, Parkinson's are also related to dysfunction in the limbic system. So emotions and mental health, I think they are very closely or even intertwined. And so we are kind of talking, I'm going to be talking a little bit about both today, emotions, but I really want to bring in a lot of the science for you and talk about the physiology and the brain chemicals for, your mental health, the physiological side of the brain. Okay, so in order to do that, we got to talk about some brain chemicals, just super basic. We've got glutamate and GABA. GABA specifically, we're talking about learning, memory, rest. There's another part that talks about, I'll share a little bit more, but GABA is kind of the brakes of the brain. It decreases the activity in the nervous system. Basically, it's, hey, okay, calm down now. We can reset. So that's a really important one. And we actually have a lot of oils that regulate or help increase regulation of GABA to help calm you down. And then serotonin, everyone loves to talk about serotonin, regulating mood, feelings of serenity, hopefulness. Oxytocin is the love hormone, promotes bonding, trust. I know all about that one. I've got a newborn baby, so that's been my best friend. Dopamine is another one that we really like to hear. That controls brain reward, pleasure center in your brain. It's what motivates you to act. A fun fact, when you hear your own name, when someone calls you by your name, it actually releases dopamine in the brain. And it's a really easy way to form connections with people. And so that's one way that you can just get a little bit of dopamine in your day and share that with other people. We talked about the fight or flight response. Your body releases epinephrine, to cause that chain reaction in your body, your muscles getting ready, your blood pumping, all of that. We talk about endorphins. Now, endorphins are both a hormone and a neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitter, I love that word because it describes what all of these chemicals are doing. They're transmitting informations via your neural pathways, via all of your nerves in your body. And endorphins, just like oxytocin is both a hormone and a neurotransmitter. And so that has some dual functions in the body. There's a whole other class we could talk about hormones and neurotransmitters, and I geek out a little bit. But endorphins, they are what help reduce pain and stress. And then cortisol, we also, sometimes, I don't want you to be scared of cortisol. There's some good stress that happens in our life that promotes good action. And then there's overstress and stress that is negative in our body. Cortisol is related to both kinds. It also helps control mood, fear, motivation, things like that. So just a little groundwork for brain anatomy, brain chemicals, so we can kind of jump in and see what our oils are doing to help us with this. The brain is an amazing part of the body, and because it's so special, so many great functions, the body wants to protect it. And so the brain has what we call the blood-brain barrier around it that protects itself, only allows certain things through, like gases, water, lipid-soluble substances to cross into the brain. Now, another word for lipid-soluble substances is essential oils, right? Now, essential oils are molecularly dense, concentrated, hydrophobic liquids containing volatile chemical compounds from plants. And we say hydrophobic, we mean that they don't like water, right? They're fat soluble, which means that they can cross over this fat soluble membrane, the blood-brain barrier. Now, when we smell something, it interacts with your olfactory nerve in your nose, right up here, goes into your brain. And that neural pathway is one of the pathways that goes directly into that limbic system, into that amygdala, to then elicit a chemical response. That chemical response in your body then triggers a physical and an emotional response. Okay? If you're interested in the exact chemical pathway in your brain, your olfactory receptors, the axons of the neurons, go into the olfactory bulb, go into the piriform cortex, go to the amygdala, entorhinal cortex. So there's a physiological pathway from smelling something, especially something that is pure and potent, like doTERRA essential oils, and getting it all the way deep into the brain to then cause a chain reaction throughout your body. Oh, got a little excited there. Okay, now when we talk about emotions are information carrying molecules that go throughout your body. and they physically bind to and interact with cell receptors. And they get into your cells, not just in your brain, but they cross cell membranes all throughout your body. And then they impact function and behavior throughout your body. So emotions, sometimes we think about emotions kind of this abstract, mental concept, but it's actually a very real chemical response interactions that are going on throughout your body when you're experiencing emotions. So now that that's kind of that groundwork has been laid, I can jump into kind of my top 10 recommendations based on studies and functions and how they impact your mental health. So the first one that I want to talk about is lavender. Lavender is the oil of communication and calm. If you're probably familiar, we call lavender the Swiss Army knife of essential oils because it has a variety of so many different uses. You can use it on so many different things. But emotionally, mentally, let's talk about that. Lavender addresses a deep fear of not being seen or heard. So putting that on can really help someone speak up for themselves, feel confident enough to hear their own voice or voice their own opinion. And it's very supportive for those that need to release tension and constriction from not expressing themselves correctly. Then physiologically in the brain, lavender supports serotonin production and it regulates GABA. So it can be very calming, but then on the same side, almost like a uplifting calm, serotonin is the hopefulness, the serenity in the brain. So both emotions, or I guess kind of hand in hand emotions there, GABA and serotonin from lavender. In doing so there's more and more, we're doing great double-blind clinical trials, clinical studies on essential oils. And I was pleasantly surprised when I was doing some research on depression that they've done more research with lavender on depression than they have with like citrus oils or some of the ones that I think to be super uplifting, right? And they found that lavender has been increased so much across the board, having a positive effect on mitigating effects of depression and bringing people out of that, out back into a homeostasis or to a baseline of emotions and mental stability. So lots of great research going on about lavender and depression. Okay, next one I want to talk about balance. This is one of my favorites. I start every day with it. If I wasn't doing that because for physical reasons, I'm doing it for emotional reasons, right? It's the oil of grounding. So it addresses feelings of being scattered, ungrounded, disconnected, unstable, and it really helps those that need to kind of reconnect with their roots and find their own strength again. Again, just like it does physically, I love putting it on kind of as a baseline because it kind of grounds me, gets me back to base, to homeostasis, to an even keel, so then I can work on addressing more specific issues or needs that I might have. Next oil that I want to share is peppermint. Peppermint is an oil of a buoyant heart, and it brings joy and buoyancy to the heart and soul. It can be really invigorating, and it reminds people that life can be happy. This is a really important one for depression. And sometimes when we think about depression, again, I think of citrus oils, I think of Melissa that we talk about, which is really great. But emotionally, for people who are disheartened, really heavy, really sad, peppermint can help rediscover the joy of being alive, the joy of living. And so that's been also a really great one for depression. Breathe. I've got to stop saying this. I think almost everyone, I'm like, oh, that's one of my favorites, right? Maybe you did the same thing. Breathe, in the last year, this one has been an important one for me. Breathe is the oil of breath, and it addresses the inability to let go of grief and pain, supporting people who are really suffocated with sadness. If you think about grief, there's almost like a weight, that sits on your chest. You can't breathe. And that's what this oil helps address, is that emotional feeling of being suffocated by the weight of sadness or grief and pain. It also helps you release that feeling to then move forward towards love and healing. So it's been something that I've used personally in journeys of grief and other times in my life, and is really powerful emotionally, mentally. Okay, now I want to talk about bergamot. I could talk all the citrus oils to me have uplifting benefits, mentally, emotionally, but then each have kind of their own unique spin on that. Bergamot, I think, is important for mental health. It's the oil of self acceptance and helps relieve despair, self judgment, low self esteem. It invites you to move towards more optimistic types of thinking and is great for those that are kind of just feeling down, hopeless, discouraged. Also, again, I could talk about all of the oils, their mental, emotional benefits because they all have them. Our blend MetaPower is the oil of body acceptance and is incredibly helpful for those that struggle with self-judgment, low self-esteem, all of that related to their body image. And so there's some really great emotional work that can be done with that oil as well. Now, I would be remiss in talking about mental health if I didn't talk about our adaptive system, which is so incredible. It was designed specifically to address anxious states. And so we have the capsules, the roll-on, and the regular oil blend. And they're meant to help us, like kind of like I was talking about earlier with lavender, kind of having that calm, uplifting feeling. Adaptive has a very similar feeling to it as well. So in preliminary studies, like I mentioned, lavender has been able to contribute to people performing tasks that require sustained attention, talking about attention deficit disorders. And then some of the ingredients of adaptive provide the kind of the stress relieving aspects, while others are more energizing and uplifting. And then copaiba, rosemary are great for soothing anxious feelings. And then the capsules themselves, besides having essential oils in them, they have a naturally occurring form of GABA, that neurotransmitter in the brain that is so great. The brakes of the brain. Right there at the bottom, it says that quieting neurotransmitter GABA also helps promote relaxation, has a natural comforting effect, helps reduce feelings of apprehension and fear by decreasing neuronal excitability. So helps your body not get freaked out as much, is another way to say it. I also love talking about, maybe I'm saying it right, scledium comes from a plant in South Africa, and it brings that feeling of alert serenity. So I'm not drowsy, I'm not sleeping, I'm just calm, tranquil, alert, awake, which I think that's a feeling that a lot of us go for, trying to seek out mentally and emotionally for our well-being and our happiness. Now I want to talk about wild orange. Wild orange is one of my personal favorites. It's the oil of abundance. And so it fosters creativity, positivity. It helps you kind of reconnect with fun and joy. Great for people who feel not discouraged, but also overly serious, rigid, they're kind of stuck, trying to reach, a happier, more creative, fun, joy place. Like I said, all of the citrus oils have that kind of more of uplifting effect. Bergamot is more of the self-acceptance, where this is abundance. Lime is zest for life. They all have their uplifting benefits. I just highlight this one. Wild orange is just one of my favorites. And then Roman chamomile. Roman chamomile might be the dark horse of this presentation. Roman chamomile is the oil of spiritual purpose. And it actually helps increase production of dopamine in the brain and also regulates cortisol. So it's helping your body regulate reward, pleasure centers in the body, motivation. But then also, on the other hand, helps regulate your stress hormone, inhibits your body from creating more cortisol, and helps limit its effects throughout the body. And then emotionally, it helps individuals that are kind of seeking purpose. And so it can be really, really grounding, but also very inspiring at the same time. And it's one of those that has that dual purpose, and works with both dopamine and cortisol in the body. Rose is the oil of divine love. And again, rose is one of those that has a dual purpose. It increases serotonin production in the brain, and it helps reset epinephrine in the body, or that fight or flight response. It's something that can kind of bring you back and reset the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve is the biggest nerve in your body, from your brain to the bottom of your spinal cord. And it's heavily involved in the fight or flight response. It's trying to activate your whole body, right? But rose is able to interrupt that and reset that reaction. And rose emotionally is able to help you feel more loved, supported, all of that as well. If you want more information about this oil, other oils, the Essential Emotions app or book, and go more into detail about each one, which I think is really amazing. And they're always adding more in there. So that's a great resource for you. Okay, and then instead of just picking one, the 10th one, I have some honorable mentions. So I just put on basil right before I recorded this. We had some issues with the initial recording when I taught this class live, so I'm re-recording this. And so I said, okay, I just need to get myself back into a good, ready to roll, ready to represent this. Basil is the oil of renewal. It reduces cortisol in the body, stress. So I thought, okay, bring it back down. And then it helps support the recovery of negative habits. So it's great for those who feel overwhelmed, inability to cope. Great for those that are struggling with substance abuse or substance dependence. So basil, if I only had to pick one, the 10th one for your mental health kit today, it would be basil. But I couldn't go without mentioning a couple other ones that are really fantastic for you. So cardamom, it's actually the #1 oil you cross-reference in the Essential Emotions book, app, the other guidebooks, and it's the #1 oil that comes up for frustration. And so I've had a lot of people that have seen great success with dealing with frustration, alleviating those feelings. It's actually the oil of objectivity. So I think it might kind of pull you back, give you a little bit of perspective maybe on that frustration. And it's also very supportive of getting self-control or gaining that self-control that you might need. Cilantro, this might be also one of those oils that we don't really think about. It's like, oh, that's just a cooking oil, right? No. Cilantro is the oil of releasing control, of letting go. And it actually helps regulate GABA in your brain. I love that we have so many oils that are very supportive of GABA in the brain to be able to help us calm down, regulate. These really can be coping mechanisms, tools that we can use. I love that it's something that we can put in our pockets or in our purse and pull out, unlike some other mental health tools that are really amazing and fantastic. You don't have to go run for 30 minutes to get some of that regulation in the brain. You don't have to eat or cry or go to therapy. All those are all really great things. They're fantastic for your mental health and cause physical chemical reactions in the brain that are good for you. But we don't all have the hour, the half an hour even sometimes that it takes to do some of those activities. So when you're trying to really support your mental health on a day-to-day basis, having something in your pocket that you can pull out, that you can say, hey, I just need 2 minutes to reset myself, to reset my vagus nerve, reset my fight or flight response, calm myself back down. It's amazing that we have tools that not only just take 2 minutes, but they're working in 2 minutes because of how fast essential oils go into our brain and throughout our entire body to create those chemical reactions. So sorry, got off track. Cilantro is amazing for regulating GABA. And then past tense, we normally think about past tense for migraines, for headaches, because of the relief that it gives us. But emotionally, mentally, it's the oil of relief and can kind of help release burdens, the overwhelming stress, tensions that we might be holding on to. It's really great for that. Of course, I couldn't go without mentioning frankincense, because if we're going to talk about rose, our queen of oils, we have to talk about the king of oils, frankincense, the oil of truth. Of course, it also regulates GABA in the body. And just like for any physical ailment that we might talk about, you put on an oil, let's say deep blue over pain, and then you put frankincense on top of that, you layer it on, and it magnifies the effects of the deep blue. It's the same thing for emotional and mental challenges. If whatever oil you're putting on that you're going for, if you put frankincense on top of that, it's going to magnify and deepen the effects of that oil. And then lemon is the oil of focus. So it supports dopamine man, I'm really struggling. This presentation is not that long, sorry. The oil of focus supports dopamine production in the brain. It's so good for attention deficit disorder, also for anxiety because of that, and is able to really help center and focus your brain, kind of wakes you up. in focusing, whereas like the blend in tune kind of calms the mind a little bit. So these are just a great highlight of essential oils. Like I said, all essential oils have mental and emotional benefits for us. But no matter what mental challenges where we might be facing, or we're just trying to encourage healthy mental habits, healthy mental upkeep of our brain, these oils have great effects throughout your body. Now, I have a YouTube channel, Essentially Empowering with Christy, as well as my social media, my Instagram, and I've taught kind of little mini classes on anxiety, on depression. I'm working on one on gut health right now, attention deficit, stress, things like that. And I kind of go more into depth into that specific mental challenge and oils protocols that we can do to support it. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check that out or put a comment in. And as we teach these weekly essential oil education classes, I'll be jumping back on and sharing other aspects of mental health education. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on our class.